Hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us for our webinar today. Today, we're going to go through the top 10 features of Advanced Installer in 2021, as well as a peek at the future plans. Thank you for being with us. My name is Cristina Constantinescu. I lead marketing initiatives here at Advanced Installer. I'll be your host today. This session will be presented by my colleague Bogdan Mitrache, VP of Product at Advanced Installer, co-author of the MSIX Packaging Fundamentals ebook, together with Tim Mangan and Kevin Kaminski. You probably already know him from some of our previous webinars. Also, if you don't have yet the MSIX Packaging Fundamentals ebook, you can have your free copy from advancedinstaller.com. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. First, about the Q&As. Please write down all your questions at any time during this webinar. And for that, please use the Q&A pane of your Zoom window control panel. Some of our colleagues are joining us today, and they will try to address your inquiries during the presentation. We will go through all of the questions again with Bogdan at the end of the presentation. Again, this is a live webinar, and we are recording it. So we will upload it on YouTube channel and send you the link within the next 24 hours. That being said, I would like to introduce our host, Bogdan Mitrache. Hi, Bogdan.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you. Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year to all of you. I think it's the first time we'll be hearing us this year. Thank you for joining us today and for being next to us for one more year. Okay, let me share my screen. Our agenda for today is a little bit different. Today, we don't have any demos. Instead, we'll do just a quick review of the most important features and improvements that we've added in Advanced Installer in the last 12 months. And we started by helping developers and IT Pro to package their applications almost 20 years ago. And our journey continues, and we have exciting plans for the years to follow. Let's take a quick look over some of the biggest improvements we've added in 2021. And also we'll talk a little bit about our roadmap for 2022. As Christina said, if you have any questions along the way, just post them in the Q&A panel and I'll go over them at the end. Or my colleagues that are in this webinar can also answer them with a quick link if possible, if it's any information that's on our website and you might have not found it. So each year we release about 10 new versions. If you're with us for a few years, you've probably noticed that. If you're a new customer, thank you for joining us. And that's kind of our way of operating. We try to do about one release each month, but that doesn't always work out during Christmas or summer when a lot of folks are out of the office. In 2021, we actually managed to release 12 major versions and 4 bug fixes releases. And we've spread this over 460 branches and over 90,000 commits in our Git repositories. It's been a really exciting year, considering it's our second year of almost full remote work. And we're looking forward for 2022. As the market leader in MSIX packaging technology, we kept on pushing the boundaries of these new technologies, and we've added in 2021 about almost 30 new dedicated features. And the PSF integration, that's the package support framework integration, was the area where we've done, I think, the biggest improvements. But while MSIX is a promising technology, MSI is still the main deployment technology today and will be for the next years. And our drive to improve it has enabled our team to deliver over 100 improvements and new features. And we will talk about some of these new features today. But you can find more details in a new data sheet that we've just published on our website. You can find it in the advancedinstaller.com footer of our website, and there is an Advanced Installer 2021 datasheet where you find more details about all of our improvements. If Christina, if you can share the link, or somebody else, that would be useful too, maybe with some of our users. Before we get into the features, I got one more thing that that I want to do a quick plug for. It's a new book. It's called MSI Packaging, and it was written by one of our colleague, Alex, which you maybe know from our YouTube channel or from reading his articles on our blog. This is something that he has been working for, I think, since 2020, and it was released a few months ago. Some of you might already have the book. If you didn't heard about it so far, go to our website again and download it. It's a free download. And the MSI technology has been with us for over 2 decades now, and there's still a lot of information available on the internet, but most of this information is spread and unorganized. And it makes it harder for us to gather the information useful for training new colleagues or new users. That's why Alex decided that he would write this book and offer it for free. You can download it, as I said, from the website, and we'll post a link in the Q&A and when we share the video in the email after this webinar ends. And if you want to hear more about how and why he wrote this book, I recommend you check out his previous webinar from, I think it was 2 months ago. It's already available on our YouTube channel, and you can find out there more details about the book. Let's start with some of our improvements. Let's get down to business. One of the most expected releases for Windows developers and IT professionals in 2021 was the Windows 11 announcement and Windows Server 2022. We won't go down to details on what these new operating systems are offering, because this was covered in various Microsoft blogs, but I'll try to give you a quick overview of what we've done at Advanced Installer to help you target this operating system better. First of all, we've made sure that new setups are 100% compliant with Windows Server in 2022. And for this to happen, we've started by updating and adding new launch conditions that correctly target these new operating systems. And if you didn't know it yet, with Advanced Installer, you can easily install and enable existing features from the operating systems, like enabling IIS or any other features that are not by default configured. And you don't need to write any script for that. You probably got used to it, but most of the things that you do in Advanced Installer is done through our user interface. So just go to prerequisites page, and there you have a Windows bundles option to add and install features required by your application. And of course, we have updated that list with the correct targets for the new operating systems and some changes that were introduced in the Microsoft APIs. Another very important thing that we've done is incrementing the value of version NT property. And you can find a list of all the values of this property and how it is set in our documentation. But as you can see in this slide, for Windows 11, the value is 1100. And usually I shouldn't mention this in a webinar, but this property is particularly important for targeting and correctly designing your installers when you have different designs for different versions of the operating system. And it is very important to remember that the native version of the property is not being incremented by the Windows installer operating system. Microsoft has stopped setting this property since Windows 8 was released. And this has forced us and other tool vendors from the system to practically design our own logic that detects the operating system and sets the appropriate value in the version NT property. So the values that you see for Windows 10 and Windows 11 in our documentation are the ones that we've defined, and it's not something that Microsoft recommended or that you might encounter in a package created with another tool. We didn't like doing this, but Microsoft gave us no choice. They didn't provide any more details of why version NT was not given a new value for Windows 10 or for Windows 11. So we can only assume that there must be some conflicts with older applications for their enterprise customers or some reasons of this kind. Windows 11 also brought some minor schema updates for MSIX, which were included in the second half of 21. Actually, there were some other bigger changes, but those are related to MSIX share containers. So it's not something that you need to do directly in advanced installer. So it's nothing that we plan to do on for the current version of our tool. For developers, 2021 was full of news. After the new versions of Windows were released, we also got the Visual Studio 22 release, which was probably the most important announcement from their perspective. And our team has been working hard for the last weeks to update our code base and prepare it for our migration to VS22 internally. And very soon the entire code base for Advanced Star will be built using Visual Studio 2022. And we've received a lot of feedback from others that plan to do the same. Therefore, we continue to expand our VS integration with a new extension, which you can now download from the Visual Studio Marketplace. And Advanced Installer at the moment has dedicated extensions for all the Visual Studio versions released in the last decade, all the way down to Visual Studio 2010 if somebody still uses it. With our extension, you can build your setup directly from Visual Studio if you didn't know it, without needing to write any custom scripts. This also simplifies your build automation and the integration with the CI/CD pipelines. And on this topic, we have some new things that we're working on, but I'll give you more details toward the end of this webinar when we'll be reviewing the 2022 plans. .NET Core adoption is also rising fast among our users. And therefore, we've updated our VS extensions to include predefined support for scanning your .NET Core projects and detect the profiles that you have in those projects and include their outputs in the setup package with just a few clicks. Again, you don't need to write any scripts or perform any black magic. Just follow the video tutorials from our YouTube channel. And in less than 5 minutes, you'll learn how to leverage this support. In this case, I don't think you really need to use any video tutorial. Just go to add output in our project and you'll find the option to select the profile if we detect a .NET Core project in your solution. And this is a very important topic. This topic is usually a footnote when it comes to application packaging and development. And the introduction of MSIX, it has gained a little bit more visibility, but it's still not enough if you ask me. The adoption of your software is influenced by many factors, and one of them is the level of trust your users have when you're installing your product, especially if you're an independent software vendor and you publish your product online so they can download it. And the latest version of Advanced Installer offers an additional layer of security for your application with this built-in support for extended validation code signing certificates. Until this version, you could use only standard code signing certificates to digitally sign your application. The EV code certificate helps you increase your software adoption rate and enhance your reputation. And it should also help boost the number of successful installations, assuming that Windows, the smart screen detector for Windows won't block as many users or any at all. Because from Microsoft statements, one of the most important benefits of EV certificate is that you get instant reputation and against the Windows Defender smart screen system. So I don't like it either that we're being shaken by Microsoft and his big friends that sell us these certificates, which are, by the way, more expensive than the usual certificates, and it takes a little bit longer to be certified to get them. So if you plan to do a release anytime soon, make sure you don't leave the purchasing of this certificate for the last day. It could take even a few weeks until you get verified by the certificate vendor. So as I said, even if we don't like it, if you have a new application that you're about to launch and don't want your users to be blocked by this smart screen annoying warning, you should consider paying a few extra dollars and get yourself this extended validated certificate. And if your application is already used by thousands of people or has a few years of online presence, then the operating system should already have a reputation for it, and you should be fine with the standard code signing certificate, at least for now. This next slide, I think, is more interesting for our IT pros, but it depends. And if you didn't hear it yet, PowerShell version 7 was released a few months ago by Microsoft, and we already support that, starting with the basic support for launch conditions and prerequisites, and finishing with our most and biggest features, this native support to run PowerShell scripts directly from an MSI. Advanced Installer has this support for PowerShell for a few years now, and it has evolved along the years. Basically, it gives you built-in support to run PowerShell scripts as custom actions with dedicated commands that allow you to get and set property. So you can basically connect your PowerShell script logic with the Windows installer engine and the logic that is executed inside your MSI, and get the power that you would usually get using a .NET custom action or a C++ custom action. We know that many of you prefer to use PowerShell just because it's easier to see the source code of that custom action directly into the project, and instead of seeing a DLL and then you need to find the source from which that DLL was built and so on. Plus, you don't need a separate IDE to write the PowerShell. With building DLLs, you usually need Visual Studio or some other development IDE that you prefer. For all of those that love PowerShell, you should know that we plan to continue investing heavily into our COM interface, and to bring new functionality like interfaces, the one that we've listed on this slide. And we've also done a lot of background improvements that will allow us to grow it even more in the futures. We plan investing in this support because it also represents the basis upon which our Visual Studio extension works, and a lot of other custom private integration done by our users. And I know that IT Pro likes to keep things silent, especially Dialogs, but for all of our software vendors that want to provide a modern and powerful UI, we have something big. And this was released, I think, 2 months ago or something. Over the last releases, we've done major changes to our installer UI framework. This allows us to include support for WinUI framework. It's a framework from Microsoft that allows you to design modern UIs for your Windows 10 and Windows 11 applications. This new engine will automatically be used by the setup when you install it on Windows 10 or Windows 11 machines. And if it's enabled, of course, it's optional if you want to use the new rendering engine or the support that we had so far. For other operating systems, of course, the previous UI engine will be used by default. This new rendering engine brings huge improvements in capabilities, along with the support for SVG images that improve high DPI, the experience on high DPI displays. We've upgraded the overall look of the installer user interface by implementing model controls that come with the improved functionality, animated transitions, and XAML support for easier UI customization. And what you see in the current version and in our YouTube videos with the demos is just the beginning. We are actually working on plans for a new theme and additional UI improvements that will follow up this year. So stay tuned for more. And I think the next 2 slides are more relevant for our IT Pro users. And the Repackager is leading the pack. It's our most used feature in the IT Pro sector, and we continue to improve it with two major additions in 2021. We've added the native integration for remote desktop connections and for Docker. And this means that you no longer need to spend time on scripts that manage your packaging machines, and you can focus on your packages pipeline more. Just like we do with our VMware and Hyper-V integrations, Advanced Installer will handle every aspect of the connection to your remote or Docker machine automatically, from the connection configuration to sharing the package resources automatically, and also cleaning up what's possible to clean up. Our remote connection support for the Repackager is now actually opening the gate for you to easily connect to Repackager to any VM infrastructure that you are using. And for a long time, we've heard some of our users asking us to support Oracle VirtualBox or other virtual machine providers. And we couldn't do this either due to legal constraints, like it's the case for Oracle licensing terms when it comes to the VirtualBox SDK, or due to lack of time, for cases where only a small number of our users were preferring a certain much less known VM provider, and we had to focus on requests that were helping a lot more users, like the users of VMware or Hyper-V. But now with the remote desktop connection support, you basically can use it to connect to any operating system from any VM that you are using. That's agnostic for the protocol itself, as you already know. Another interesting topic for IT pros, and not only, because we've seen also developers joining the ranks of MSIX Packaging, is the support that we've done for MSIX. And ever since our joint release with Microsoft in 2018, we've continued to lead the market with new features and improvements for MSIX Packaging. We provide packaging both for tools of MSIX Packaging, both for developers in the Professional and Enterprise Edition, but also special purpose tooling for IT pros in our Architect Edition. So with the Professional and Enterprise Edition, you can just create packages, MSIX packages from scratch. And if you want to edit them, you can edit if you want to edit existing packages, not the projects that you created as Advanced Installer, but if you want to edit the package that you receive from somebody else, you can easily use our user interface from the Architect Edition, like you would do when you are editing an MSI. And the Architect Edition also includes the critical compatibility issues, the fixes for those compatibility issues that we are doing by integrating the packaging support framework. And in 2021, we've continued extending our support for the package support framework with probably what is the biggest feature yet there. And that's the automatic folder redirection wizard. This support allows any IT professional to easily fix compatibility issues without writing any scripts or having to learn the ins out of the packaging support framework when you don't have access to the source code of the application that you're packaging, which is usually the case. And I presented how this works with details and demos in a previous webinar. I think it was in October 2021. And you can find that on our YouTube channel. You'll also find a link for that webinar, I think, in the follow-up email after this one ends. And from our internal tests, we found that about 2/3 of the application, so that's over 60% of the application that we packaged, need to use this engine to fix access to non-virtualized resources from those packages. And this is a critical part for MSIX Packaging, because the access to their source, when the access to the source code is not available and you just want to make the app work without having to request a different package from the vendors, or in many cases, this is not a big issue, but it's just a small issue that is generated by the container, the MSIX container, and the fact that when the app was written 10 years ago or so, it was doing stuff like writing directly into program files or performing other unrecommended operations. We also work on other MSIX improvements, like support for FRAD bundles that allows you to optimize the size of the packages that you're building, or the ability to specify a batch file as a target instead of an exe. So in that batch file, you can specify additional configurations or additional steps to be executed before your exe gets launched. You don't need to specify additional parameters usually because we have that support directly. So if you want to use a batch file just to specify shortcut parameters for your application, that you can do directly in our UI without using a batch file. And our MSIX journey continues as you've gotten used to it. If you're just getting started now with learning MSIX, I highly recommend you download the free ebook that Christina mentioned in the beginning of this webinar. It's a book that I wrote together with Tim Mangan and Kevin Kaminski in 2020, and it's very useful to help you get started and learn how to create packages, no matter what tool you are using. We're in the tool we're exposing different methods to use advanced installer MSIX packaging tool or other tools from our competitors. And overall, 2021 was a great year for advanced installer. We've built a lot more features and improvement that I can talk about today, or that I can share on a slide. This list is, as I said, just mentioning some of the most important ones that I considered you should be aware of. And all of them are included in the 19.0 version, but tomorrow we'll release 19.1, so you'll find even more features available. And we are sure that in 2022, you'll find a similar list of improvements and new features. And here are some things that we have on our roadmap, for example. And for example, it's the GitHub Action support is something that's currently under development and will be released somewhere by the end of this first quarter. And it's going to help streamline your packaging pipelines within your GitHub repositories, of course. And as you all know, more automation is never bad, so we want to keep our promise and deliver on this. And we don't plan to stop here. We have some more improvements in this category that will be released sometime in the second or fourth quarter of 2022, depending on the feedback that we received from you guys. And as I said, the installer UI engine based on WinUI is just getting started to grow. New themes and improvements will be available soon. And for external people, application packaging might seem like a frozen land, but insider know very well that a lot of things are constantly changing, and we plan to adapt and to improve our tools, especially the Repackager in the MSI editor, to constantly serve your needs. And since we are getting better and better at writing books, we are preparing a new one. This is mostly useful for developers that want to avoid the headaches from improperly tested setup packages, and that usually later require expensive fixes in production and a lot of gray hair. And this is going to be an installation testing guide that I have been planning for a few years now, but never had the time to actually work on it. And in the last quarter of 2021, two of our colleagues decided to save me, and they started writing this guide, which will be published very soon. So stay tuned and download it and share it with your internal testing team. I think this is about everything that I wanted to share with you today. I didn't have the time to paste all the links here, and it's also harder for you to copy them. So you'll get them in the description and the video and in the email that you'll follow us from us. And let's see what questions we have for today. Okay, so we have one from Sankar. Is there any events for on before install to make custom registry entry? Okay, so my colleagues already explained a little bit of a solution how you could basically create custom registry entities before the installation takes place, or before the actual registry created by the MSI are taking place. So you could either do a custom action that do this. One other option would be to use our support for pre-install prerequisites, where you basically execute another MSI that does this preparation of the system. As my colleague said, it depends on the scenario that you are trying to achieve. Okay. Another question from Harry. Hi, Bogdan. I've tried to package a legacy application called AudioConsole. And initially the MSIX package gave an error message at closing. That's why I had to perform an action using the pack support framework from Advanced Installer. I've done a file redirection in XML. Testing the MSI packaging went okay on my machine. And the Intune deployment, after the package was installed, the client, it didn't start on the end user machine, complaining about the file redirection fix-up. This is quite a generic question, so it's strange. Why we don't know why it would complain about a fix-up from the package, since the package already contains that file, so it should be there. As my colleagues already replied, it would be useful if you can share with us the package, or if you can reproduce this on other machines, and also give us more details about machine. I assume this is a 64-bit machine. I rarely see 42-bit machines in infrastructures now, but maybe that's the case, and there's a bug with the 42-bit DLL, which nobody noticed because they're rarely used. Okay. Another question from Nathan. Our developers use Python. Okay. Code using Anacoda. Your site has 2 blog posts on how to create packages, and it's how to create an MSIX package for Python apps and how to create MSI app. And I don't know the question. I don't think there's a question here from Nathan. Okay. Nathan, I don't understand the question. I think you didn't finish it. So if you consider it's a longer topic, just email us at support@advancedinstaller.com, and we'll follow up with more details about your concerns, because I don't think you typed the entire question here. A question from Mark. Can you explain your pricing model? And he's also interested in a demo. So who's interested in a demo, please either fill in the demo request from our website. You'll find an option on the purchase page to fill in a request for a demo, or just email us at support@advancedinstaller.com and say you need a demo, and our guys will schedule you. And the pricing model, is very simple. Advanced Installer is licensed with a perpetual license. We have 3 paid editions: the Professional, the Enterprise, and the Architect edition. All of them offer you a license which basically never expires, and 1 year of maintenance, during which you'll have access to newer releases. Like I've just said, we do about 10 releases each year, which are also including new features, not just bug fixes. And with this license, you can create as many packages as you want. And Advanced Installer is licensed per engineer, so every engineer that is using it needs a license. And you also have the option to purchase a floating license. So if it's used rarely, you can use a floating license, which is more expensive but gives you more flexibility, because anybody from the team can use it as long as they don't use it at the same time. We have an example detailing how that scenario works. So, and again, you can create as many packages as you want, so that's not our interest. And if you work for a packaging agency, Mark, it should be important to you that we don't ask you to buy a license for each new customer that you're doing packaging for. So once you have licenses for your packaging team, you can have as many customers as you want. or if the customers themselves want to edit the projects or the packages you've delivered, then they should buy their own license, or you can resell one of the licenses on our behalf. Another question from Bjarn. Is there a way for the installer to detect the currently installed package, ignoring its version, and uninstall it prior to install a new version? I simply want to upgrade, replace, or downgrade application without touching the installer scripts. Just compile a new package should suffice. Well, Bjarn, the default support from Windows installer is to only upgrade versions. So if it finds that a newer version is already installed by default, when you create a new project in Advanced Installer, the MSI will say that a newer version is already installed on the machine and will not downgrade it. So for this, you need to do some tweaks in the package to work. I don't remember exactly right now if we have any options to do it directly from the upgrades page to do some settings or configuration there, or if you need to write a custom action. But email us on support, and I'm sure the guys have a sample somewhere in there that can share with you and explain you more about the situation. Usually downgrading is not a scenario for which the Windows installer system is optimized. Nathan, I don't understand. So Nathan says, can you discuss and demo the steps for Anacoda Python? I'm not familiar with Anacoda Python. I assume it's an IDE for writing Python apps. We'll have a look over this, and if you email us, we can either do a quick demo, or we can gather more information and maybe prepare a future webinar where we discuss how to create setup packages for Python applications. This is a topic that's gaining more and more attention. A new question from James: how to uninstall a prerequisite that's bundled up in my application, install when the application is being uninstalled? That's very easy, James. So once you add the prerequisite in prerequisite page, you have the option to define uninstall command line. So that's option goes for feature-based or post-install prerequisites. And you can basically go to prerequisites page and select the prerequisite, or all of them if you have multiple. And in the settings or setup files tab, I don't remember the tab name right now, you'll find the 3 command lines options. So you'll have the option to set the install command line for your prerequisite, the maintenance command line, and the uninstall command line. So basically, the command line that you set there is the command line that will be passed to your prerequisite when the main application is being uninstalled, as you said here. Okay. One question from Harry, which was asking for an email address where he can send us more details about the topic. So as I said, the email is support@advancedinstaller.com. You can find it on our website. You can see it in the questions answered, or just write us on the forums if you can't find the email. I think these are all of the questions. Am I missing any of them, Christina? I don't think.
No, I think these are all.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any other questions later on, just email us, as I said, reach us. You can also find us on our forums and on Twitter, or however you prefer. Like we're online a lot. And Happy New Year once again, and we wish you a very good 2022 and stay healthy. That's the most important thing. Bye-bye.